4th, 2019, at 6 p.m. Elaine, can you call the roll?
Josh Barrett.
Here.
Jessica Rubery.
Here.
Anthony Petracca.
Here.
Felix Apollonia.
Here.
Joe DiMartino.
Here.
Wayne Miller.
Here.
Item 1, approval of the minutes. Review and approval of the January 7, 2019 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, and a second?
Aye.
Okay, and then, any discussion? Not, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 2, public hearing, major subdivision 1034 Main Street. Applicant Roy LaCroix, trustee. Location 1024 Main Street, assessors plat 18, lot 35, residential R6, land area 13,510 square feet, number of lots 2, and the engineer is Ocean State Planners.
Mr. Chairman, I have marked as exhibits, exhibit number 1, the application, exhibit number 2, the zoning board decision, exhibit number 3, the planning board master plan approval, exhibit number 4, the abutters list, exhibit number 5, the radius map, exhibit number 6, the affidavit of notice, and exhibit number 7, the site plan.
Okay. Tom, I assume you represent the
I do. Is
applicant.
that on? Mark, is my mic on?
I believe it is, sir, yes.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Cronin, for the owner and applicant, LaCroix Properties, and Roy LaCroix, the trustee. With me, Richard Bizdera.
Please speak directly into the microphone. I can't understand you, sir.
And I'll slow down, too. With me, Roy LaCroix Jr. And Richard Bizdera from Ocean State Planners. 1024 Main Street, located right down the street here, diagonally across from the Dollar General. It's a corner of Main Street and Brayton Street. Currently, there's a single-family home on the Main Street portion of the lot. Has a separate 2-car garage and a shed. It's 13,510 square foot lot. Their proposal is to divide that lot into 2 lots, each having a home on it. The proposal calls to remove the shed and garage and build a single-family home facing Brayton Street. As a solicitor advised, we have been before you for master plan in October of 2018 and before zoning for a variance for the depth of the lot in November of 2018. The proposed new lot facing Brayton Street has 89 feet of frontage on Brayton and along the rear boundary, but only 70 feet of depth at the side boundaries. It would have 6,230 square feet, and that is the variance that we saw from zoning, was the depth of the lot. Otherwise meets the minimums of 6,000 square feet, 55 feet of frontage, 20 feet of front depth, and 6-foot setbacks on the sides. The building height is less than the 35 feet, and the lot coverage is okay. The area is mainly residential to the north, northeast, east, and west, but there is a commercial property on the rear boundary. Along the way, we made a few stipulations before we got to this point, and so we've agreed to have Brayton Street to be a minimum of 20 feet maintained across the whole frontage, and to clear out some of the brush and growth in that area to improve the visibility on Brayton Street. And we've also agreed to have adequate off-street parking in that area because it wouldn't support on-street parking. As you can see from the diagram, the latest version of this house has a 2-car garage with a driveway in front of it in support of that. If the planning board was to see fit to approve the plan in front of it, we'd ask to go to final administratively. We have reviewed the planner's comments, and we agreed with the on-site drainage and other items mentioned by Mr. Carullo. Do you have any questions from me or the Mr. Bizdera from Ocean State Planners or anyone else? Please let me know.
You came before us last October
Yes.
so that we could make a recommendation to the zoning board. What, if anything, has changed on the plan since then?
It was a one-car garage
Okay,
at that time,
okay,
and the building depth was 24 feet.
yep.
And that changed to 26 feet at zoning, or it was the other way, the reverse, I apologize.
26 to
Yeah, right,
24.
I apologize, yeah. So those are the two major changes.
Okay.
And you'll see well, because of the two-car garage, the driveway
Driveway
is
wider.
further width there.
Okay. Anyone else, any questions for Attorney Cronin? We've gone through it before. We recommended approval for zoning, so, you know, are there any questions? Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. Are there anyone here that wants to speak in favor of this hearing? No? Okay, someone
Yes.
want, in favor? In favor or opposed? We're gonna do in favor now, we're gonna do opposed later. Are you in favor? No. Okay, so hold on a second. Anyone gonna come up and speak in favor of this application? Okay? Apparently not. Anyone speak in opposition to this? Come on up.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Miller, 44 Woodside,
Will you
West
raise your
Warwick.
right hand?
Speaking on behalf of my daughter Alexis of 1026 Main Street.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. So I spoke in front of this board about October and November
Yeah.
with concerns about the amount of trees on the property. I had made contact with the contractor, walked the property with him, but I have not heard any results of what my request had been. So I'm simply asking for either a buffer or the removal of the trees that are currently there today, because they're impacting our land today. So since that time, my daughter has invested $12,000 in a new driveway. You can see through pictures, if you choose, of how the trees are disrupting the foundation. So I think from a future state of how the land will move, that it'd be beneficial for those trees to go. It's continuous work for us to maintain that property with that.
Very good.
Okay.
Anyone, Mr. Cronin, Attorney Cronin?
If I could just
Have-
have one more?
Sure.
They got two cars inside, two-car garage. There's two cars, four cars.
Okay.
Two in and two out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I concur with Mr. LaCroix, and he was aware of the meeting and that they had reached an agreement to do that along that boundary line.
Okay. Hey, you had mentioned something of that, I thought.
Well, no, I was talking about the street side.
You're
but
talking
this-
about the street
This
side.
is the rear of
The
the
rear side,
property.
okay.
So, yeah, we would work with him to, make the improvements that he wanted as far as the removal of the trees, as long as it doesn't interfere with the, things like the access and utilities and things like that. And I don't
It's
think
in
it
the
should
rear
be,
of the
yeah,
yard.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so in order to clearly define this, so we don't run into a problem here, why don't we table this until they resolve it, they can come back? Motion to table.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any further discussion about tabling this and basically postpone it, leaving the hearing open and come back at our next meeting?
I don't,
At the end of the meeting, Chairman? You're saying at the end of this meeting?
No, saying to come back. The way I understand Felix's motion is we're gonna leave this hearing open, we're gonna continue it at our next meeting, and at that time, we would like you to bring a written resolution on how you're gonna resolve this problem.
well, I don't think it's a problem. I think we're gonna remove whatever trees he wants removed.
Can't be a stipulation,
We're gonna stipulate, well, okay.
I mean, it's not,
So there are approximately 4 to 5 trees on the property
but
line.
that's the thing, I see where Felix is coming from, so,
Yeah.
we wanna make sure you get the right trees and the right things, so I guess the stipulation needs to be pretty clear and concise.
That's fine.
You know what I mean?
I've walked the property with him, and I had not
Michael Roy,
heard.
and then what he's saying is, oh, you said that tree, I thought he meant that.
I understand.
Phil, is that what you're trying to say, like, they get the right?
Final?
which is these,
So, all right, so we have a motion, second, moved and seconded, a motion to table this until the next meeting. we're gonna vote on that
Mr.
first,
Chair.
but my suggestion is gonna be, and I'm gonna ask for a motion, that we grant this preliminary approval, but have you come back for final instead of doing final administratively.
That's fine.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
Well, I mean, the trees that we're referencing, Mr. Hathaway is correct, are not on the site plan currently.
Yeah.
So at final, we would
so put them on the final, note that they're gonna
be
come out,
removed.
and we'll come back, so you come back to us for the final instead of doing administratively. If that seems
That'd
like
be
a
fine.
I
logical.
just wanna make
solution.
sure that the details are covered
Right, on the
stated
final plan. Yeah.
for this gentleman.
Yep, yeah, okay,
Okay.
okay, no, that's good, okay, great. Good. Okay, so,
So before we vote, Joe, I'm just wondering, should we be listening to any other
yeah, let's, thank you.
concerns?
Is there anyone else that, here to speak in opposition?
Right?
You're right.
Right?
Hi,
Hi,
Could you state your name and address, please?
my name is Monique Fleury. I live at 22 Brayton Street.
Could you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Okay, my opposition is, of course, living there for over 30 years. The street is very tiny. With the increased business with that Miller's, Pacheco, there are a lot of big trucks that are coming up and down that street from both ends, from Pike Street as well as from Main Street. No matter what I say or anybody else says, because you outnumber any of the residents on the street, it's going to get built whether we want it or not. The only thing I ask is, if you're going to do that, then I propose there is no parking from Main Street right down to the bottom of the street on both sides. It continues on the east side, no parking. On the west side, there still is considered parking. If you're going to build that house with the increased business, with the big trucks that are coming down, let's compromise, make no parking on the street at all. Everybody else has enough room on their property to park whatever vehicles that we have and also to accommodate whatever company we have.
Mr. Chairman, for no parking, it must be referred by a councilman to the traffic committee.
Right.
And the traffic committee makes the decision, and I prepare an ordinance.
right, so,
You
that's
could-
not part of what we,
You could make a,
we could
you
make a request
to the
to
council.
the council to look into the situation and make no parking.
Because really, at the bottom of the street, you can only park maybe 3, maybe 4 vehicles
Yeah.
with the parking that's allowed. Other than that, there really is,
It's a legitimate concern, and Al, just quickly, I see that it's a separate issue from this.
Yes, I would suggest maybe you get in touch with Council President Goslin.
oh,
That's
okay,
his ward.
I know him, yes.
And you explain the problem, and he would know what to do from there.
Okay,
Okay, because that's, they have the authority over that, we don't. Council.
all right. Other than that, like I said,
Thank you. Anyone else that wants to speak? Okay, if not, we have a motion on the table that I would recommend we vote down and then have a motion to do the final approval administrative. So the motion was to table
All right,
this,
so if we're,
Wait, Joe,
unless you want to withdraw
you
it,
said administratively, but
the final. Do the final come to the board, not done administrative.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes,
I would suggest amending the planning office recommendation as follows.
okay,
Planning office recommendation is to grant preliminary approval with final approval to be through the planning board with the following stipulations.
okay,
We continue stipulations 1 through 6
yep,
and add stipulation 7. That reads as follows. The trees along the southerly property line to be located on the final plan and to be removed as a condition of final approval.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, the motion to continue has to be withdrawn.
The motion to continue, okay.
It was seconded, it has to be.
all right, so,
Withdraw and then amend as presented.
so now that we have another way to just
Yeah.
make sure it's covered,
Yep.
I'll withdraw the motion to table, not motion to table, right?
Yep, that's
I'll
that.
withdraw the motion to table,
Okay.
just as a second. And as long as they iron out, whatever they
Come
need
back to us for-
between both parties, is fine.
He's withdrawn, right?
Okay.
He's withdrawn? Felix, you've withdrawn.
He's withdrawn.
You should make a motion now to approve as amended by the planner.
They need a second to withdraw, right?
Who seconded it?
I second it.
Okay, so, You withdraw your second?
Yes, I withdraw.
That's a sec, that's,
Okay, so we need a motion basically saying that we grant approval subject to the language that the planner just gave us.
I'll move the motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll see you for final, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Tom?
All right, so,
Just cleared the room.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I spoke
no,
too
they're
soon.
not, no, you spoke too soon, okay. Item 3, discussion. Hilltop 3 condominium development, Gilchrist Associates LLC is the applicant. It's on Gilchrist Drive, assessors plat 38, lot 34, zone residential R10, 11 acres. Engineers Narragansett Engineering, and we're here to discuss the current status of the project and the administrative officer's action authorizing a change in the project under subdivision and land development regulations, section 17-39, changes to recorded plats and plans. I just wanted to start by basically saying, I've got a lot of complaints from people saying that this approval was done behind closed doors, and I understand there's a much longer story. And, but that's what we've been hearing, and that's what I've been hearing anyway. And frankly, when I looked into it, and discovered some of the things that had happened in here, I really felt like this original approval that was recorded was fraudulently applied. Having said that, I know it wasn't the developer that's currently there that did that. It was the first developer. And it was done over 10 years ago, maybe over 15 years ago. The original approval in the plan included an easement and a means of egress out through Cranston for some of the traffic. But the final plan that was recorded did not have that on it, and a letter that was presented, I believe, to the zoning board about this egress was never recorded. Okay, so that happened, I think. So I'm gonna ask, so the primary purpose for being here is for us to just open up and and basically explain in public what happened, where we stand, and where we go forward. I am not at all interested in stopping the project, not at all interested in that, but I am concerned about future development and some, and other issues that may have happened. So I'm gonna ask Mark, the planner, to just kind of go through the history for everybody here.
So, Mr. Chairman, I prepared a memorandum for the planning board, basically running through the chronology of the approval process for this project. I think you all have the benefit of having that memo. I've also attached that memo, the Rhode Island General Law statutes, as well as the local regulations with regard to major and minor changes to recorded plats and plans.
Mr. Chairman, because this was here for discussion, I did not mark any exhibits,
Okay.
but I would question whether or not you would like the report marked as a full exhibit for,
Yes, please.
I will mark it as exhibit. I will mark the town planner's report dated February 13, 2019, as exhibit number 1.
Thank you.
Without reading through the memorandum, line by line, I would just like to run you through the chronology. In that, based on my research, going through the file and researching the land evidence records and those records available online, the first indication of discussion before the planning board for this property dates back to 2001, August 6, 2001, where there is an indication in the planning board meeting minutes. There was a general discussion about the project being a multifamily development. At that point, there were additional minutes dated September 2001, where it discussed the first indication that it's a 50-unit multifamily development project. And there was some discussion before the planning board at that time about a recreational facility, a baseball field potentially being developed as an amenity to the town as it relates to the project. The next planning board meeting, minutes dated December 3rd, 2001, in which the planning board makes an advisory recommendation to the zoning board. The positive recommendation in favor of the 50-unit development. There was general discussion about traffic in the area, and a Governor's Hill resident had a discussion about the Governor's Hill pump station, concerns about capacity at the pump station. At that point, the planning board moved a positive recommendation to the zoning board upon satisfactory results of a traffic study. There was no written recommendation or other information available in the file. The next notation would date March 11th, 2002.
I'm going to interrupt you for a minute.
Yes.
Do you have any record of this traffic study?
I believe as we go through there, there was no traffic study submitted, although there was an indication that it appears, and I don't know this because I wasn't here, but it
None of us
appears
were here.
that
We got that. We
it
understand.
appears as a result of either a traffic study that may have been performed or one not being performed, that the secondary means of egress
Yeah.
was something that was offered either in lieu of or in exchange for. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
That is indicated in some of these correspondence. So on March 11, 2002, there was a second advisory recommendation to the planning board. Once again, a positive recommendation in favor of the 50 units, this time with two options for egress through Walden Woods. And discussion was that Walden Woods would authorize the access in exchange for assisting them with some sanitary sewer issues that they had there. Again, there's no written recommendation available in the planning board file, nor could I locate one. It was at that point that I believe maybe the traffic report either wasn't done or there was something in exchange for that, because that's the first mention of the secondary egress. May 29th, 2002, zoning board decision letter approved the 50-unit residential development, and it included the stipulation that the development was subject to a secondary means of egress only. That's exiting traffic into Walden Woods. That was contained in the zoning board decision letter. Project next hearing was in the planning board, April 4th, 2005, planning board decision letter. Planning board considers a request to modify. The board recommends the applicant submit a new application for consideration. I have no record in the file of the application or what the requested modification was. However, there is a decision letter stating that there was a request to modify. No details in the letter. September 12, 2005, planning board decision letter. Planning board considered a conceptual review of proposed development. Planning board votes to continue the conceptual review to be merged with master plan. So at that point, the master plan is a general conceptual review. The planning board voted to combine master plan preliminary review. So there's no decision on that date other than to merge the two hearings. September 14th, 2005, zoning board decision letter. Zoning board finds that the approval granted back in 2002 is still in full force and effect. Again, there's no detail in the letter of the finding, but the assumption is that the applicant had performed certain work in relation to prior decisions within a 6-month span, which basically activated and vested the zoning decision. That means it was still good. November 14th, November 14th, 2005, planning board decision letter. Planning board considers combined master plan preliminary approval. Planning board determines that the West Warwick Town Council has enacted a moratorium prohibiting any future or further sewer connections to the Brookfield Hills pump station. Now, that's Brookfield Hills, and I don't know whether Brookfield Hills is the same as the pump station that was mentioned earlier. However, apparently this project would be tying into the Brookfield Hills pump station. Planning board approves a requested master plan preliminary with the condition that no construction of the dwellings can occur until a pump station is approved and upgraded. Planning board also included stipulations requiring sewer impact fee, 1721 fee in lieu of open space, and that the developer shall perform additional landscaping to a prior project, Hilltop Phase 2 and Hilltop Phase 1. No request for final approval shall be considered until the Brookfield Pump Station upgrade has been approved and allowed. Next time this project came back was in January 2007. Planning board considers a request for final approval, which was not considered because the station had not been upgraded, okay? Now we're into March 5th of '07, planning board decision letter where the planning board granted final approval of Hilltop 3 for the 50-unit development with 3 stipulations. Impact fee for sewers, 1721 fee in lieu of open space, and again, the landscaping requirement between Hilltop Phase 2 and Hilltop Phase 1. The planning board decision did not include a stipulation addressing or requiring the second means of egress. On April 9th, 2007, the plan was recorded. The plan did indicate a connection between this development and the Walden Woods development egress only. However, there was no stipulation, again, in the recorded decision, and there was no indication on the plan, although the plan is recorded, that access had or had not been secured.
But it was on the plan.
It was on the plan. It showed an egress.
That was on the plan that went to DEM also. That roadway was on.
Yeah, so there is throughout the process, there is a DEM plan which shows egress. The DEM plan, I mean, not to refute anything that's being stated, it was on the plan, but the DEM plan simply governs, wetlands approval, indication of wetlands and project development. It doesn't govern access, but it was included on the plan. The DEM plan did reflect the recorded plan, so yes, that is on that plan.
In 2002, there was a zoning board denial. There was a zoning board denial when we look at clerk base. It said, at a 2002 date, zoning board denial, then it went back for reconsideration. The link was not accessible, but it described the date, it said zoning board denial, then they came back. But that zoning board decision requiring egress, and the fact it was on the plan, I don't think the planning board had to stipulate as part of the final approval. I don't think we had to stipulate what the zoning board already decided.
Right.
I don't think it was, we never created the stipulation, and I don't think was it a requirement of us to stipulate that in that final approval? What the zoning board required?
I would say yes.
Well,
But, no, I can push back on that one out. People present us a plan, we approve the plan. If it's on the plan, that's what's approved, what's on there. And if it's shown on there, we approved it that way. We didn't need to add a stipulation because the plan showed it. That would be my argument, that we didn't need to be expressly have a stipulation because the plan showed the egress. So, and that's the issue. The plan that was recorded doesn't, back in 2007, or whenever it was, shows an egress.
Yeah.
And it's on the plan. That's what we approved.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
And I'm not
Because I wasn't on the
Right.
planning board at that time.
And
I
I'm
wasn't
not-
at these hearings. All I know is when a plan comes to us, if it's on the plan, that's what we approve.
And I don't think anyone is really refuting that or disagreeing with that. What I would say is that when the plan came back to the planning board, at the time, that access had not been secured, and that the approval, and I'm not, no one here was on the board one member was on the board at the time, but, it's really not up to the member on the board to ensure that all of the stipulations and requirements are met. They're receiving advice and recommendation, I'm hoping, from staff. But at the time that final approval came back, I think the speculation would be from a board member sitting there was that approval had been secured. It had not. It had never been secured. And at the time that the plan was recorded, it would be assumed that that approval had been secured. It had not. It had never been
Did
secured.
secure from Walden Woods.
Yes, that's correct. There should have been,
So it should not.
there should have been
They should not have
there should have been a document provided to the town, which was a recorded document,
We agree.
okay, securing an easement or access to the development. I have not been able to locate one at a point, the developer, this project has new ownership.
Yeah.
The new owner came in, and I don't want to speak for him, he's here, he can speak for himself, did whatever due diligence he did, end up purchasing the project, started to clear the property, and initiated his construction to a degree, and mostly earthwork. And at a point, I believe, and I'm not sure what the catalyst was behind this, but I believe, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, that Walden Woods actually reached out either the town or the developer and said, hey, we hear you think you're coming through our property. I'm paraphrasing. We're not allowing you access. At which point, when the town, meaning the planning office, became aware of that, we did contact the developer and tried to coordinate between the new owner and Walden Woods to get them together to try to negotiate some sort of an agreement to try to conform to the zoning stipulation. At a point, that did not work out. The developer was doing the development and came back. We had our attorneys speaking with each other, the town, the developer's attorney, and reached an understanding as to allowing the project to proceed to a point and no further, and that was limiting the project until such time that that easement was either secured or that the project went to the appropriate boards, bodies, entities, received an approval, or until there was some indication that the stipulation was, I don't want to use the term illegal, but unsustainable. I'll use that term because I don't really know the appropriate term. So I, as the administrative officer, made a determination that it was actually a reduction, would have less of an effect than the principal development, and issued an administrative approval limiting the project, reducing it from 50, I think, to 22 units. After reviewing it with Public Works, acting Public Works Director, and the town's fire department. And that's, I believe, what happened. Subsequent to that is I included that on the planning board agenda to notify them is required, as required under Rhode Island general law, any administrative action or any administrative recording that I make, I am to notify the board. So that's, I believe that's how it came to light to the general public generally. There may be some individuals in the public that were aware of it. I know Walden Woods was, on the Cranston side, was certainly aware of it. And that there was no intention and no willful act by me as the town planner to try to hide or do anything that was in secret.
And, well, you brought it to us in December.
Well, the next available planning
Next
board
available
meeting.
plan, right. After, but it was already recorded, they were already
Right.
started, they were already under construction.
Well, they were under construction, Mr. Chairman, a year ago, or more than a year and a half ago.
And, okay, and then, I know you sent the, I want to talk a little bit about this too, but the changes in recorded plats and plans, and you sent, I appreciate all the materials you sent in advance, thank you. But you talked about the difference between minor changes in a plan and major changes. And I can understand why you thought of this as a minor change, because it actually reduced the traffic flow that would have been there on the major change. So I can understand why you thought it was a minor change. I'm just concerned that changes of this magnitude maybe should have been considered a major change, and therefore would have been, had them come back here. Might have presented the same plan and we might have approved it, but people wouldn't be saying it was done behind closed doors.
So, Mr. Chairman, in response, I do appreciate your comments,
Yeah,
meaning that I will take them under advisement, and moving forward, we can do that.
okay.
But just not in my own defense, but just to present my analysis,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, I think everyone has
Yeah.
planning section 1739. And I would just draw your attention to 1739C. And I'm gonna
With the
present this,
definition of the major change.
I'm gonna present this a little
Okay,
differently.
all right.
If you look under major change, it defines what a major change is.
Yep.
And it breaks it down to 4 items.
Yep.
Changes which would have the effect of creating additional lots of dwelling units, it's
Yep.
not that.
Nope.
Changes which would be contrary to any applicable provision of the zoning ordinance or require a variance or special use permit from the zoning board of review, it's not that. Changes which may have significant adverse impacts on abutting property or property in the vicinity of the subdivision land development, it could be that if
Could
you
be
were
that.
to make a determination that there would be increased traffic. However, when I looked at it,
Yep.
it's me looking at it,
Yep, got it.
in my own opinion, subjectively granted, that there were less units, so there would be less traffic coming in,
Yep.
and that the egress was egress only, and if you were to look at the configuration, only
Yep.
individuals exiting the development, the future development, heading points north would use the Cranston access. That would probably be half or less than half at any particular time, so 22 is less than half of 50, so that was my determination. And changes that may have significant adverse impact on any public service utility or road. I didn't find that it was any of those, and when I went back and I looked at the minor change, the one that seemed to be is a minor modifications to any construction plans which are acceptable to the Director of Public Works and/or town engineer, so I went to the Public Works Director and the fire department, because I knew that they had issues. So that was my logic in going through that.
Yep.
I do take the planning board's comments into consideration, and any change that would be considered a change, I will reach out to likely the planning board chairman to have that discussion. I cannot talk to the full planning board as members, because we don't want to violate the Open Meetings Act or create a rolling quorum, but I will run any future administrative decisions through the chairman, and I will rely on the chairman to direct me as to what he believes the appropriate action would be, and if it's the determination of the chairman, this chairman or any future chairman, that they want that to come to the board, I'm happy to do that.
But I just want to make note of the fact that we've gotten a letter from town engineer, Jim Jeremiah, that the wastewater department has said the sewer, the Brookfield pump station, that it's, has the potential to cover all of the units being considered up at the Hill. So just,
Mr.
we should
Chairman,
put
I would
this,
like to mark out exhibit number 2.
please. I think that would be good.
Mr. Chairman, so when I look at that letter,
Yep.
and we go back a couple of meetings when we had one of the residents make note, this is fine and good. When we look at pump stations, everything's in great working condition. And first start off, you have a duration factor on equipment, and I always question the capacity, because it really is truly 400 GPM this day. And, I always was looking at it as, there is reasonable cause that there could be some issues with this pump station. I'm not saying that it doesn't give, can't process 400 gallons per minute, but what's been the problems on that pump station that's been causing the issues in the neighborhood? Has been the question that I was questioning. This isn't a perfect world that I figure. If I just built a pump station, I get it like that, but how old, what's going on down there, what's the age, what's happening? That's the only question I have, Mr. Chairman, concerns.
Question. Okay, I'm, and I don't know how to deal with that. We asked the engineer to check if he thinks what the remaining life of the pump
Yeah,
station is.
what's the you know, the pump station at the beginning of its life cycle. It seems, these numbers seem to look at it
Yeah.
from pump station.
The way I understand it, that the pump station was upgraded within the last few years, is that correct?
That's my understanding,
That's
yes.
my understanding.
Yeah, it was upgraded through the capital program, through the sewer authority in the last, in the
Okay,
last
so
couple of
when was it
years.
up- when
Well,
was it
we
up-
have our
Our expert?
sewer advisor in the audience, perhaps he wants to.
I want to make sure my neighbors and I don't go through and went through an 05.
We got it, we got it. Would you like to come up here and offer some comments? Okay. This isn't a, this is not an official,
I'm just going to answer the question that's.
Okay, all right.
I'll make my comments afterwards,
Could you
but.
state your name
Paul Villa, 15 Janet Drive, West Warwick, Rhode Island.
and tell the truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. As many of you know, my visit here in December was because of an issue that happened at the Brookfield Hills Pump Station back in October of 2005. At that point, I had been yelling at meetings, at sewer subcommittee meetings, at sewer commission meetings, at town council meetings, that we had a problem since March of '05 with that pump station. And this came directly from West Warwick Sewer Plant employees in March who said, had a lot of rain, station's not gonna catch up for 4 days. Okay, my mother was doing laundry, long story short, the water went all over the floor, that's prompted my call to the sewer department. Okay, generally ignored for 6 months. This is why I get a little irritated when I get ignored. Okay, October of '05, we get inundated with about 5 days of rain. There were probably 13 or 14 houses that I know of, from midway up Alden Drive all the way down Janet Drive. Basements were filled with sewage. Okay, I had a backflow preventer. There was so much pressure in the line for 5 days that in the slits of the manhole covers, the sewage was shooting this high in the air. Okay, it breached, or it got through the backflow preventers, at least in my home. Town ended up having to pay the bill to clean all the cellars, obviously. I've made this, I said this to Mark last year when I checked on the 17 that were going on Wakefield Street. Cellars were destroyed, Memento's gone, okay? The issue was, tie-ins were made to that pump station. That pump station was not designed to handle anything else other than Brookfield Hills, period. That's what the pump station was originally designed for. It was put into a low-lying area of the neighborhood because we are below the sewer plant level. It needs to be able to push it up to the sewer line that gravity feeds the plant. Governor Hills 1 and 2 went in, no significant upgrades in the plant. Hilltop 1 and 2 went in, no significant upgrades in the plant. And this is what caused the problem. Now, I'm not looking to stop this development. I said that when I came to the last meeting. But the plan, to get back to what your question was, they didn't even have the design on the drawing board to upgrade the plant in 2005, which is why the moratorium was placed into effect and why these units were not able to be built back then. I'm going to say it was early 2006, thereabouts, summer of 2006, when the new pump station went in, if my recollection's correct, but that's about the time the new pump station went in. It was after the 2005 debacle that went on down there.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? When that pump station went in, was it upgraded or did it stay the same size? Because the key word I'm looking at here, because you just mentioned we've had tons of rain, we had that. This is saying average dry weather flow. What would be the flow rate if we had, dry weather? So that's the key word that I'm saying.
Well, that report you have right there was prompted by me.
Right.
Because I came to Mark, when I came in the December meeting, I found out a month or so later that we have buildings going up, and I never got an answer to the sewer problem. So I came here, he didn't have the answer. I went to the building inspector because they issued the permits, okay? The only thing they have in the file from the sewer plant is there's access to sewers. Okay, so if there's a sewer pipe in front of the development, that's access to sewers. What you need to worry about is where the sewer pipe ends up.
Well, that's
Okay.
the question I have,
Yep.
Mr. Bill. What I'm asking is, the upgrade to the pump station, it's obvious that it was built for a certain thing, and now we're adding to this pump station. Now, when I say I upgrade a pump station, I'm gonna redo the pump station, I could've came in and put two 25 horsepower motors, replaced what was there, pumps,
I'm
back
gonna-
replaced. Or did they put 50? You get what I'm saying?
I'm gonna tell you that I've spoken with Jim on several occasions, both in 2005, and I prompted this report, because I spoke with him directly for this report. He did say that it had been a couple of years since he looked at the flows. He was gonna go back and look at the flows again to make sure that everything was okay, and that's where this report came from. Now, the pump station, back when it was put into place, they had said it was about 3 times the size of the old pump station. It was a significant upgrade. It went from a 4-inch force main to a 6-inch force main, which goes up to a manhole on Glendale Drive, okay, and that's where gravity feeds from there to the plant. It has been working fine, because I know the manhole, okay, and I can tell just by a heavy rain event in the old station, that would be running constantly, and you can hear it, okay?
We had 10 inches of rain just in the month of November, we had some big rain in December.
Right.
Did we notice any type of?
I did not, it hasn't had any issues. Now, it also told me that this project was calculated into the flow of that pump station, because it had been on the boards since 2001, okay? The 17 that were added on Wakefield Street were obviously not calculated in, but according to his report, I believe he said, I got it at home, but I believe he said that it was 60%, about a 60% capacity with these 2 projects going in. Basically, that's what I wanted in writing, something like that, because if, you know, I'm not an engineer, I don't know how they calculate the flows. You know, he wanted to show me some formulas, I don't need to know the formulas, I trust him, right, I trust him that he's the engineer that we hire. However, I will press upon the planning board again, I have a few more comments later, but, that this is the kind of report that should be made of any infrastructure in this town, any substation in this town, because, again, those improvements that were made to Brookfield Pump in 05, 06 were borne by ratepayers and taxpayers, and that's why these people have to pay fees now to recoup our money. Okay, that's not how it should happen, all right? But I'll digress unless anybody else has any other questions relative to
So
what.
you were told 3 times, the substation in 2005 and 2006, it was 3 times the size.
That's what I was told. It was significantly bigger than what was there. And another thing that I was told was that in the old pump station, there was supposed to be a setup of 1 pump running as primary and 1 running as a sole backup.
Yeah.
When we had those heavy rain days, both pumps ran full bore, and they couldn't keep up. These pumps, allegedly, 1 is primary, it runs, it keeps the flow going, the other one is secondary and is a reserve. Right.
So, Mr. Chairman, one other thing, so when we got to 2009, is that when we had the floods? Is that when you?
2010.
And 2010, did you notice anything different?
No problems
There
in
was no
2010,
problems.
no problems.
Very good, thank you. So, any other comments or questions before I open it up the floor to the audience here? Anybody else? Just the applicant, would you make a statement, have any questions for us, any comments?
I'm not sure what status we have here. We're not
You're the owner-
applicants.
You're the property owner.
I represent the property owner who's
Who's
to
here?
my right here.
Yeah, okay.
And he's more than happy to answer questions that emanate from his ownership on forward,
Yeah.
including how and why he went forward with this project and what forms he filled out, what permission he had been
I
given.
believe you were asked to be here because we were gonna be talking about your property, okay?
Yes,
And we didn't
yeah.
wanna do that.
No, I appreciate
behind
that. Thank
closed
you.
doors. So we wanted you to be here so you could hear the.
And just for the record, because I know I don't have to get sworn in, my name is Robert Craven. I represent the owner of the project.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney.
Billy, you want to come up?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Mr. Scampoli.
Okay.
Could you state your name and your position in this matter?
William Scampoli, owner.
Would you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your comments initially that there's no,
Mr. Chairman, just to put a little clarification on your comments about their being here. They were given notice so that the open meetings law would be complied with.
Right, good, thank you.
I appreciate your comments regarding my involvement, which has been recent. To give everyone an overview, I've been looking at this property since 2011. It was offered to me. I did my research. At the time, I wasn't willing to move forward. 2014, I met with the departments, was assured that this was a shovel-ready project, and then purchased the property. 3 years later, in 2017, I put my financing together, put my package together. Prior to starting the project, I again did my research again, was assured it was shovel-ready, and the bank requested a road opening permit, which was basically the green light to do the project. And Mr. Carullo can correct me, the road opening permit requires, I believe, the signatures of all of the departments in the town of West Warwick: zoning, planning, building, fire, Department of Public Works, water, and sewer. Everyone signed off on that road opening permit. With that, I went forward, closed, got the financing, started the job. After about almost $750,000 in the ground, I went to apply and to get the sewer permit. Mr. Bishop informed me that he could not give me the permit because there were some issues that were outstanding and that I needed to talk to Mr. Carullo. Went back to see Mr. Carullo. Mr. Carullo then informed me of this stipulation regarding this secondary means of egress, which I had thought from the plans, as you mentioned, was all set. I then contacted the president of the Walden Woods Condominium Association. He initially said to me, hey, no problem, don't worry about it, we know about this, we'll give you the letter. I hung up saying that sounded too good to be true. 3 days later, I received a letter from his attorney saying, forget it, we're not giving you anything. Now, I noticed in some of that information that there was some discussion about helping Walden Woods out with their sewer issues. I'm not sure what the resolution to that was and whether or not Hilltop Phase 2, if it was such, had complied or allowed them to do some interaction with the sewer. I don't know those issues. As such, we then met with Mr. Carullo because my intent on the project was always to do this in 2 phases because I don't have the wherewithal to do a 50-unit project and put all that infrastructure in place. So I was always intending on splitting it in 2. In discussions with Mr. Carullo, it was like, listen, I really don't care about the big picture right now. I need to move forward because at the time I was stopped. I sent an email to Mr. Carullo saying, listen, I'm stopped work. I can't do anything. I've got money sitting in the ground here. I'm paying interest every month. What do I do? And we came to a situation which we looked at, which basically involved, all right, if you're going to do it in phases, let's look at this phase 1. Let's see if we can address this. As part of that, I was asked to provide, and again, my plans were approved, and I was told that nobody can change your plans. You're in a development. It's a condo. Do whatever you want inside as long as you don't exceed the number of units, et cetera. In cooperation with the fire department upon the review, they then requested a hammerhead turnaround at one end of the development. I agreed. That's going to cost me almost $75,000. At the other part of the phase 1, they wanted a circular turnaround temporary so that they could bring their vehicles in, turn around, and go out through the same entrance. As part of those plans, I was also requested to supply the overall development and get, in the event we were not having the egress going through the Walden Woods development, to provide a turnaround at that end of the development. In providing that turnaround at that end of the development, I'm literally losing a unit, chopping it off, so it's really may end up being 49 units because of the size of the turnaround. Following all that, Mr. Craven, Mr. DeFiore, Mr. Carullo put some documentation together that allowed for phase 1, which was 22 units. In reading the memorandum, it states that we agreed to reduce the developments from 50 to 22 units and provide a cul-de-sac and hammerhead to allow for emergency vehicle service vehicles. Mr. Craven provided a letter agreeing to limit the development to 22 units unless or owner secures approvals for the secondary egress. In the planning board decision letter, which was filed and recorded, along with the plan showing the initial 22-unit turnaround in Hammerhead, Mr. Craven provided a letter which stated that the owner agrees specifically that the planner's authorization of proceeding on Phase 1 is not an approval of proceeding to Phase 2 units, or unless, A, the approval of Phase 2 turnaround cul-de-sac for emergency vehicles and school buses from all West Warwick officials is submitted, or the owner receives approval of a recorded access through the Walden Woods, conditions of the zoning board in 2002, and C, obtaining any West Warwick ZBR setback relief as well as dimensional variances that may be required. So our intent here was that I was not giving up my rights or interest to a 50-unit development. That's what I was granted the road opening access for. But the town basically had me up against the wall and said, look, if you don't reduce it to 22, this isn't moving. So that's when we worked together to try and work a compromise to say, hey, how can we move this forward initially? How do we address this moving forward? Because I certainly would not, and I want to make it perfectly clear, not only for the members here, but to everyone here, that I had no idea about this stipulation. Had no idea about it. My plan was a gate at the end of the thing that would come up and down, and that's all it states. It doesn't say what it's for, how it's being used, et cetera. It was just a gate. So I'm figuring, all right, I'm gonna go down there, I'm gonna build a gate, everybody's happy. It wasn't until when I went to meet with Mr. Bishop, and my heart was in my stomach, because it was like, guess what, you're not doing anything. And, you know, really want everyone to understand that I've been forthright, I've met with all the departments, I've met with building, zoning, I've tried to do the right thing 6 ways from Sunday here. And this is really frustrating.
But frustrating for us too. And we understand that. It has to be very frustrating for you. I got that. And I understand that. And none of this was in any way you're doing. So we appreciate.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we're here to just kind of openly air what actually happened, okay? As I said at the beginning, no desire to not let you continue with Phase 1, at least on my part. I can't speak for the whole board, but I have no desire to do that. I drove by today, the frame of the building you got done, it looks nice.
Again, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm probably overbuilding for the values, but I'm really trying to do the right thing.
It looks very good, yes, yes.
I'm trying to,
Yeah, so thank you.
thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Anyone else?
And
Questions?
in regard to the gentleman with the sewer, I never learned so much about sewer. I had no idea those problems or issues.
All right.
And this project was approved by the sewer department for the 50 units.
Yeah, no, right.
I then went back in and I had to resubmit for a couple of $1,000s and more than that, all new plans, which initially I wasn't supposed to do. But again,
Yep.
what do I do?
Yeah, this,
You know,
again, and the root of this problem was back in 2001, 18 years ago.
and I'm not associated with the original developer in any manner, shape, or form.
Okay, very good.
Just want to make that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
can I
Craig.
have 2 minutes of
Yeah,
the board's
please do.
time? Normally, when a lawyer is representing a client with a situation such as this, and I don't fall into that category of being normally you go to court, file suit, let a judge make a determination. And I've already been kicked out of the lawyers' union because I always say, and only people that get rich are the lawyers. But,
What, that he doesn't, that he's not a litigatory lawyer? I have
Not in the
dealt with-
union.
I've dealt with Bob over the years, and he, and I like to think myself, have always worked to try and
Yep.
compromise things, even to.
I
killing-
learned how to
killing
be,
dead-
I learned how to be a gentleman in this fraternity that I engaged in as a member 36 years ago from guys like Al DiFiore. He's the example of what
He
a
was
young
your
lawyer
mentor
should be.
36 years ago?
That's
Jeez,
correct.
How old are you?
He's
36.
1964.
But quite frankly,
Passed on it.
Mr. Chairman, I had not met your planner before this proceeding. And I can tell you, as a person who's appeared on both sides, both as a solicitor in Foster and in Charleston and the city of East Providence with planners and zoning officials, as well as a litigant on the other side representing developers, class act, handled himself with a great deal of
Do you know where he was
distinction.
in 2001 by any chance?
I do not know.
He'd have been here, lived in the South, wouldn't have had this.
I don't know. But for what it's worth, from the observations of a guy who's not yet as old as your solicitor, but I'm getting there. You can see that he has more free time. I have a little bit of a tan. He has a lot of a tan.
Yeah, we know where he's been hanging.
Well, in the
Not
snow.
here in the snow, no. Anyone else want to speak? Chief Villa, come on. Please no.
You are still under oath.
Again, I appreciate the developer speaking here. I don't believe either one of these two gentlemen are really any of the issue. The issue is the procedures that are followed here,
Yeah,
and I've said this before, and I will probably say it to the council as well. I've served on technical review before.
Yeah,
I've been circumvented before, okay? I've
got it.
requested stuff on technical review that never got to the planning board, never got to the zoning board, asked people to come back before technical review to tell me what they did to solve my problem, and all they did to me was circumvent me to the planning board or to the zoning board, okay? The issue here, you know, we have a final plan that's been recorded. There are changes to the final plan. And I get there's a little gray area as to what's major and minor changes. Now, I stood before you, and I will say this to Mark, I asked for some documentation, he provided it, no problem. But when I went home and reviewed some of the documentation, I stood here at the first meeting of December, and I asked for this information on the sewer pump station. And quite frankly, had I gotten it, we probably wouldn't be standing here tonight, okay? But I didn't get it. And then I find out we're building, okay? I looked at a letter when this minor change was granted. It was granted October 25th, 2018, okay? I stood here in the meeting in December of 2018. Not once did anyone say, oh, by the way, we've granted an altered plan to go forward. I didn't hear anybody say that. And you know, if you're saying you did, that's fine, but I don't recall anybody.
May I make a statement in response to
Yeah.
Chief Villa's comment? There was no statement made to that effect. There is no obligation for a statement to be made to that effect. On that agenda, as with this agenda, you can look at item 4, and it says administrative subdivisions approval for informational purposes.
Right. He
Those
handed us
documents are delivered to the planning
Okay.
board for the purposes of that.
Well,
If they
that
have,
came at
may
the
may
end
I
of the
finish,
meeting.
please? If they have a question, they can certainly ask me about anything. They're mentioned at the meeting. If someone in the audience has a question, say, what does that mean? It's so that it's my obligation to report to them anything I do. There are 2 items on the agenda this evening. If anyone has a question, they can ask me.
So they were all aware in the December meeting, because I get it, I'm just a taxpayer out here, I'm not a
We
planning
saw this
board
in the
member.
Dece-
But they were all aware on the December meeting that you had granted approval to go forward with the 11
Yes.
buildings.
Yes.
The plan was attached to the
Yes.
Okay, so you were all aware of
agenda.
that?
Yes.
Okay, because I wasn't aware of it, so
Yeah,
maybe,
And then I requested discussing it in the January meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and I was told we couldn't because we didn't advertise it. We didn't let the property owners know we were gonna discuss it. So then it
Mm-hmm. Then the
got
February
postponed,
meeting
and
got
February
canceled,
got
Grant, yeah, I
canceled.
get
Here
all
we
that.
are in March,
okay, so I guess in that respect, then I apologize to you if you gave them but nobody said to me when I was standing here, by the way, just so you know, there's gonna be some buildings going up. Okay, so when I find out in January that there's buildings going up,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a little taken aback.
So-
And you
so-
know, this is nothing personal with you, Mark.
I understand that.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is
I get it.
about the way taxpayers should be treated.
I agree.
Okay, I'm a taxpayer, and I was a police officer for 27 years here, okay? I didn't treat taxpayers like that, okay? When I come in, I ask a legitimate question. I've told you the story twice. Twice I've told you the story personally. I came to you last year when the 17 were going up on Wakefield Street. I walked
You were
into
here
your
for that.
office like a gentleman.
Yeah.
I told you the entire story, what happened to
Sure.
myself and my neighbors.
Understood.
I specifically said to you, can you please call Jim Jeremiah and get me something from him saying that this pump
No.
station can,
No, you didn't.
I did.
You did not.
Okay, we got a difference.
We'll have to agree to disagree.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree. But you
Mr.
gave me
Mr.
an answer from Jim saying that it could handle it, and I took your word for it, okay, back
Okay,
then.
may, First of all, I never spoke with Jim Jeremiah.
Okay, well then you told me something that didn't happen. then.
I did not. I
Oh,
told you I
okay.
spoke with Bernie Bishop,
Okay.
Oh, okay. so
okay?
Bernie,
Is
And
that,
I
the
don't
guy
wanna,
who, is that the guy who signed saying that there's a sewer pipe in front of the place?
I don't know who signs, Mr. Villa, but
Okay.
I'll tell you what, if anyone comes to me, including yourself.
Yep.
They're treated respectfully. They're given the information that they request.
Yep.
Okay? And if they ask me to do something, I do it.
Okay. In
So you're
December's
implying that I
meeting-
didn't.
In December's
And that would be
meeting,
incorrect.
did I stand before this board in the December's meeting asking for the information on this pump station? Did I stand right here and ask for this information?
Mr. Villa, perhaps you stood there and asked for the information, and you were probably told that the information was
Yep.
available through the sewer authority and it has nothing to do with this board.
I wasn't told
You
any
were
of
by
that.
me afterwards.
I came back to your
in my office.
I came back to your office, and you
And I
said
said
that
that's
wasn't
really
your,
not-
it wasn't
that's
your
okay.
issue.
That
It
is
was
correct.
the
All right, so you guys have
Okay.
different memories of what happened.
No, well,
Let me tell you something, I got different memories, but I can tell you, I checked the file in building.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm the one who called the attention to the fact that the DEM permit was, that they had in the file was expired on that date, and you got a call, because she was standing right there. Okay, so these two guys really aren't the problem here.
No, they're not.
Okay, and I want them to understand that I didn't come here to stop your project, trust me.
Mr. Chairman.
I came here because
Just so you know, as far as the DEM permit,
it's all set.
All set,
It's all
everything's
set.
been,
It's all set.
everything's been
It's
resolved.
all set, I get it.
Okay.
Okay, my point is, my question was never answered. Buildings went up, okay? And, you know, there are people who are severely impacted by this. Health concerns, loss of property. And I know I stood here. Somebody up there has to remember me standing here asking if the sewer pump station could have the capacity to handle this. Okay? So
Yeah,
you all know I
Mr. Villa,
asked.
that question shouldn't be asked to the planning board.
Okay. The other thing, we'll
That
move on.
question is for the
We'll
sewer
move on,
authority.
because
I
I
would
know
like-
where I'll deal,
That- you
I'll
might
know
as-
where I'll deal from now on.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, before we move on, I want to clarify something that Mr. Villa said about the way we treat taxpayers. The state law says how we treat taxpayers. You and every other taxpayer in this town were treated according to the state law. Nothing was done amiss. It was on
Did
the
I-
agenda. If you had read the agenda, you would have known
I
everything about it.
asked a simple
So
question,
don't come
Al.
up here
Don't
and say
be
that-
taking the attitude.
that say that you weren't
Because let me
made
tell
aware
you
of it.
something, Al.
It was on
I
the
came and
agenda,
asked a simple
you were
question.
made aware of it.
Okay? I would ask a simple question, because I do not want to stop this project.
Right.
All I wanted was a simple answer to a simple question, which you did not give me.
Then you could
Okay?
have gone to the sewer
And I
department
did go
where
to
it
the sewer
was.
plant, that's why you have the report, something that you should have had in your file from day one, period. Okay? Because there's a sewer pipe in front of somebody's house, does not mean the infrastructure can handle that.
Then go to the sewer department.
Okay? I went to the sewer department,
That's
okay?
where you belong.
And I'm
Now,
gonna,
just
really?
Stop, let him finish.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not taking pot shots at him.
I meant
He
you-
just told me I belong in the sewer.
No, I meant
No,
you
he
belong.
didn't.
Okay? I don't know if that's the way you meant it,
No,
Al,
I
but you know what?
That's
I
what he
meant
said,
you
but I
get-
don't think that's what
Okay?
he meant.
I meant
think
you
the-
you
let me-
belong getting your information
I-
from the sewer
He did.
department,
Okay.
not the planning
No,
board.
we belong having a process to follow here, where you know what technical review said, you know ahead of time what taxpayers' concerns are, you know what the zoning board was said, you are the people who should be making the final decisions for the residents of the town of West Warwick, period. Okay? And that's where I'm gonna leave this, because let me tell you, I got an eye-opening experience tonight, all right? And I will not forget it, okay?
Mr. Bill, it's nice that you come here and inform us of the problems, because I wouldn't know what happened. I don't live on that street in 2005, which prompted all my questions, just looking at the sport, knowing how pump stations work. So, I mean, you know, in all fairness too, I mean, sometimes we don't have all the facts. I mean, you know, I understand
And
what
I
you're
think
saying, and I'm just saying is, this tells me, okay, it handles it, but doesn't tell me how old it is, doesn't tell me a lot of things. And so you provide us information that supports it, or that, I would call back the sewer department and say, okay, how old are these pumps? What are we working at? What's the longevity?
And I appreciate that. You should please ask those questions when these projects come up. Because another thing I said in the December meeting, which most of you.
July 11, Mr.
Right. Another thing that I said in the December meeting, whether some people remember or not, I didn't make this specific to the Brookfield pump station. I said any infrastructure in the town of West Warwick, okay? The simple fact that there's a pipe there doesn't mean where the pipe ends can handle what's going down there. And you're gonna impact people, okay? We have a letter saying that pump station can handle it. If there's a problem with that, then we're gonna have to deal with another problem down there. But I appreciate your time, and for
Thank you,
dealing with
Chief.
me like a gentleman.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Chairman, just to give Mr. Villa a little comfort level, I guess. That, of course you do. In the file, when the approval was granted in 2007 and recorded, there is substantial documentation in the file from the sewer authority that says the pump station is adequate, upgrades have been made. Those letters were signed by Janine Burke. The file is here. I think what Mr. Villa is asking is the phased approval that was granted administratively would not have been granted if the sewer authority did not indicate that there was adequate capacity in the pump station, just so you're
But again, when
aware.
this project came forward,
That was in 2007.
Yeah, and
I just want to be clear on that.
there was
It had nothing to do
adequate
with me.
capacity in
Yeah.
2007.
Right, yeah.
But when the project started in 2001, there was not adequate
No,
capacity.
understood, and we all agree.
Well, Mr. Cruel is saying it didn't say it in the paperwork to your defense,
Yep.
that it wouldn't
Right.
have approved
Yep.
if it didn't, so now.
And by the way, just so we're aware, not only did I speak with Mark and go to building, I actually took a ride to the sewer plant that day, and I spoke with someone down there asking for this information.
Yeah.
They couldn't give it to me, okay? They said they would have to call the engineer. They never did, apparently. I called my councilwoman, she got me in touch with the engineer. Jim and I had a discussion, and that's where that report came from, okay? Thank you.
Chief, we appreciate your concern, very much so. And we look forward to you coming and pointing things out in the future.
Can't wait.
Okay, Chief.
You know what, like they always say, don't wake a sleeping guy, you know?
You do make a good point, when there's other sewer stations around the town, when we have
There's
these
a lot
type
of them.
projects, yeah, we-
When you get to the sewer lift station.
But this would be
You gotta make
great
sure it's going.
information, because this is information we can understand. Now,
Yeah.
listen, we added
Yep.
capacity
Yeah.
to 250.
Okay, all right, so I don't believe we need a vote on anything, right? Because we're okay. This was just to
Yeah, it's just
open,
for discussion.
clear the air, I think we're good.
Just one- I just gotta-
Go ahead, anyone, any other comments? Go ahead.
Just one question. So from 2007, if you add 15, 17, 22, as different projects come online and you exhaust capacity, 60, 80, 90%, the developers incur some, in other words, once we get to 100% on the pump station, then there has to be another upgrade.
It would be,
Right.
it would be before 100%, but yeah.
Well, before
Yeah, your concept is correct, right.
Right, so the developers pay a certain amount of money towards,
So, I'm not familiar with how it works in West Warwick,
Right.
Felix, okay? But I am familiar how it works in other communities where it works. And that is, that is sewer facilities, pump stations, the treatment plant, all have capacity levels. And whenever a project comes in and it's forwarded to the sewer authority determines what portion of the system it's tied into, looks at the capacity of that portion of the system, and is supposed to indicate whether that portion of the system can handle the additional capacity. If it signs off and says it is, that's the sewer authority's responsibility. If it is not, the project should not move forward and not get approved. Then there comes a process where the developer has to work with the sewer authority to provide engineering and upgrades at the it should be, and to respond to Mr. Villa, and in this particular instance, it should have been the obligation of the developer to provide the engineering and the upgrades and pay for the engineering and the upgrades to the sewer authority. What happens here, what happened here, I have no idea, but that's the process and the way it's supposed to
they
work.
share some of the cost for the,
They should share all of the cost for any upgrade associated with a plant or a portion of the infrastructure that is required to accommodate their development.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the town planner a question? Follow up on something Mr. Villa said. It has been my understanding that any of these projects that come before the planning board, when they get into your office, the sewer department has to report, at least to you, that the project can be handled. Am I not correct in that?
In each and every project that has come before this planning board, while I have been the planner, has had a similar letter in the file from Jim Jeremiah authorizing or allowing the project to tie into the system with certain stipulations or requirements.
Yeah, and this, because this goes back to long before you were here,
Yeah.
and long before I was here on the planning.
Chief, that's what you were requesting, is it not?
Yeah,
What you have there in the letter is what I was requesting. Had it been provided, there wouldn't have been any issue.
Yeah.
That's all I was asking.
well, good. So we're gonna, so it's gonna be it's part of the.
It is part of the
routine now.
And the chief mentioned the technical review committee. The sewer authority is invited to each and every technical review committee. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. What can I tell you?
All right.
But all
Well, thank
projects
you.
go to Jim Jarrell.
Okay, so I guess the hearing's done. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Chief, thank you.
Yep.
And,
See ya.
all right, item 4, this is administrative, this is where we got into trouble.
Yeah.
Paul Phillip, Chief Phillip, this is where we got into trouble. Administrative subdivision approval for informational purposes. We have 2 plans that were attached, were granted approval administratively, and they're here to inform us. One is the Laramie Avenue minor subdivision, Assessors Plat 7, lots 30 and 35. And the second one is the Megara plat, Lonsdale Street, Plat 11, lots 38 and 102. We have the 2 plans here. I remember being at the hearings, the meetings when we went through them, they're really, you know, one's 3 lots, one's 2 lots. So not big, certainly not major subdivisions, although we call them major.
The 3-lot subdivision, Chairman, was approved by the planning board with an administrative approval, so I'm just notifying the board
Yep, that this
that it
was
received that approval and has been recorded.
Yep.
The other is simply, if you look at that, the plan is a small triangular portion on the back that was deeded over from one property to the other.
Oh, okay. Okay. And.
Any questions?
Any questions or anything on that? Okay, if not, item,
So as a matter of record, there's no changes.
no changes on those. Okay. And then item 5, public comment.
I think you've had that.
Any public comment? Not hearing none. I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.